Hi and welcome to the channel. Now this video is about soldering. I've had a few requests in the past about doing some soldering videos. I did do one, didn't get many views, but I thought I'd do another one because this is going to be involving some kits as well, some kits you can go and buy, and I think it's a great way of practicing. And this is really, this covers everything really, but really for the channel, you'll be, if you're going to start mending stuff and something like that, vintage stuff especially, your contacts, the bits you're going to solder on the board are going to be much bigger than the pieces I'm going to show you here today. So if you mastered any of these, or done a reasonable job on any of these, you're going to do a great job, I would have thought, on your receiver, your amplifier, whatever you're going to muck about with. Of course, you can break these. Don't forget. I must warn you that be careful. Just because you solder something in there doesn't mean it's going to work afterwards. So obviously you can break it. And but anyway, like I say, you may want to think you've got an old amplifier, something you're not too worried about. You want to maybe change the capacitors or something like that on. This is a great way to start, and you can pick up like little kits off of eBay for next to nothing. But you can also, I'm just going to show you what I've got, what I use on a regular basis here. And I've not recommended, people have asked me what's this iron here, and I say it's just a cheap one off of eBay, £10 I think it cost me, nothing, maybe 12, not a lot. And I think it come with a stand or something else it come with. You don't need anything expensive. You ain't got to buy one of these super duper irons that's got the sucker built in or anything like that. I get by with this, all the stuff I do with this. I've got another iron which you'll see in the video as well that I use now and again. It's a lower wattage iron. I think that's like 100 watt iron. I think this is about 200. I can't remember exactly. So it's going to be a bit hotter. I can't get hotter quicker, that kind of thing. But it's got a little temperature control on it. So that's that. So, you need a soldering iron to start off with. This isn't going to cost you a fortune to start and maybe learn and get into it kind of thing. A soldering iron, recommend a stand, something like this, so you can put the soldering iron in. That goes in there, obviously. A little sponge, so you can wipe the soldering iron. One of these kind of things. This cleans the soldering iron. You just push it in there and that cleans it. And obviously some solder. So if I move a few things out of the way to get it a bit less complicated here, so you can see we need some solder. I've got a few different types of solder. These are not lead free. These are lead, I think 40% lead is it or something like that solder. These are old fashioned kind of solder. I prefer that. It just, adheres. Stick's not the word, but you know what I mean. It's going to adhere and make a better contact. For me, it's more easy, more flowing, that kind of thing. And I've got a few different kind of gauges here. I've got quite a thick one, a thickish one there, a really thin one there, and a medium one there. So I've got a few bits of solder. So that's solder. That's something else you're going to need. A little bit expensive, but just get a small little bit. You can buy it by the meter on some of the sites on eBay, some of the sellers on eBay. I recommend you getting some wick here. This is solder wick, solder braid, whatever you want to call this. If you make any mistakes, you can use this to get the solder off and get the component out. You can use a solder sucker, but I don't bother using that. This has got me by, so I use solder wick, not expensive, a couple of quid for one of them. So it's not going to cost you a lot to get the basic equipment. Now, what I would start off with, I think, is a good way to start. It's called Veroboard. It's not expensive. It's a board, and it's got little holes in it. And what I would do, if you're very first starting off, I think I'll go for something like this, a Veroboard. Get your iron and all that. A Veroboard. Get yourself some resistors or something like a cheap part. You want some cheap parts, because you're going to be just using them and not actually doing anything with them kind of thing. Sometimes they do kits of these resistors. You could buy like 100 of each value for next to nothing really. They do them, and just take these resistors out and just put them on the board. There, they go in this side here with no tracks on the bottom, and you'll see the tracks going in one direction up there. Hopefully you can see that in the light, up that way, or if you turn it around that way, they're going this way horizontally. And just poke them through two different holes, roughly the size of the resistor, something like that. It hasn't got to be precise, but it's just get it in there to get the video as short as possible. So get the resistor in there, just turn it over and solder them two joints. Just start mucking about soldering them two joints, and you can go through that through a lot of resistors and just muck about and get some practice in there. And once you've got them in there, you can snip them off with the snippers. Then you think, well, I'm going to take some out now. So use your braid, get your braid on there, get your soldering iron and desolder them. You could just do a lot of mucking about just with that for the time being, just to get you the feel for the iron, get it in your hand, feel for it, make sure the wire, this is a setting of the thing that happens, the wire gets in the way and all that, just so you get, got it all nicely, getting used to how to use the iron. Always keep the tip clean, obviously. Keep using that, either that sponge or this little thing here, to keep the iron clean. And you're going to get the practice, you're going to get the feel for it without ruining anything and without spending much money. So that's a great way to start, I think. Now, you can get kits on these Veroboard, or you can make up some circuits yourself. So once you've mastered that, or you've got a good idea of that, then that's maybe the next thing to do, is actually to get yourself a little kit and see how that goes. Okay, once you've mastered this board, tried all the, soldering all the resistors in maybe on the board, etc., you may want to move on to actually getting yourself a kit. Now, they do kits on eBay, AliExpress, places like that are fairly cheap. You pick up one less than a tenner, that's for certain. And some of them are less than £5, depending what kit you go for. Maybe get something you're interested in as well. Maybe something you can use afterwards, or just, most of it's just experimental mucking about, really. But sometimes there's something that comes in useful that you may want to use. So that's on a Veroboard. Just going to show you a couple of different types of kit that you can get here, because not always on Veroboard. They use a special, design circuit board of their own. But now and again, you get one on Veroboard, and such a kit I did buy a while ago was this little traffic light simulator thing. It may look a bit amateurish at the end there, but I'm probably going to connect them up and put another little board next to it, and actually have some proper lights, some proper bulbs maybe being used on it. But as is, you can only light up the LEDs off of 9 volts as you buy this kit, so it's just a little bit of a muck about, really. Yeah, this board, this kit is on a Veroboard. The only difference with this board here is that when we turn it over, there's the Veroboard. It's exactly the same as the Veroboard I just showed you. The lines going, the track, should I say, going across horizontally here. But you would have to drill some holes in, because you don't want to be shorting out these ICs. You want to make sure one IC's got a gap, there's no connection between one side, should I say, than the other. So to do that, you actually use a drill. Now, you don't have to go and get a great big Black & Decker drill or anything like that. It's just a drill bit, just a small drill bit, and you just basically, I just put it between my fingers, go like that, and it drills. As long as it's sharp enough, it'll drill that track out. Just put a little hole in there so the track is no connection. It breaks the connection from one side of the track to the other, so there's no short between the pins of the IC going that way. Yeah, and that's straightforward enough. And what you may want to do, if you actually get one of these boards, is get yourself a cheap multimeter as well. Not that expensive, probably pick up one about £7 or £8. Then once you've drilled the hole, before you put the part in, you can actually put your meter probe one side there, maybe one side here. You've got the hole in the middle, and you just make sure that track is open circuit, it's not a short. Because sometimes you can just leave a very small part of this. It kind of, as you drill it, it kind of lifts up a little bit, and I don't know what the word is, phrase or whatever, and you may just leave a little bit of that copper track behind, so you have to be careful. So yeah, just double check maybe with a multimeter. You can't always see it by sight, that I've noticed. Okay, so that's that board there. That's a Veroboard kit. Don't get many of them, but they are about. And the other kind of kit you get is something like this. This is a smaller one, comes with its own dedicated circuit board. Got its own little tracks on it, so you haven't got to cut any holes, anything like that. It's all ready to go, kind of thing. Once you put the parts in, say on the board which part to put where. Now I'm going to do one of these kind of kits now in this video to give you an idea of what it involves now. But like I say, this is maybe as you progress, because the solder joints here are smaller, not a lot smaller, but they are a little bit smaller. So I recommend maybe if you're very first starting going to this Veroboard, maybe move on to these other kits after you maybe done a Veroboard kit, or maybe once you've mastered that Veroboard little muckabout thing you bought, then maybe move on to one of these. Just get a cheap one, don't have to get anything too complicated. Maybe just got 10 or 12 parts on it, something like that. This has only got about 10 or 12 parts on it. Nothing too complicated to start off with, and get your soldering skills get some practice with your soldering skills. But like I say, if you're looking at vintage stuff, once you've mastered that Veroboard, you're going to be a dab hand, I would have said, at doing vintage stuff, because there's some big connections on the vintage stuff. And if you actually manage to get one of these done, and you get it all working and everything, and I think you have definitely no problems doing any vintage stuff, because this is quite small. You probably need your glasses, etc., and maybe even a magnifying glass may come in handy, just to make sure you've done all the connections properly. Okay, so now we're going to build a little FM transmitter. So here we go. Okay, so here's the board that I'm going to be soldering for this transmitter. And the first item I'm going to solder onto the board, I think, is this IC, because it's got quite small contacts. So I was going to use some solder paste maybe to put this on the board, but I haven't got any at the moment. I looked and I haven't got any. So I'm going to use some very thin solder instead. Now normally you put them in how big these items are, so when you turn it over they're not protruding from the board so much as you try and solder them. I mean, the smallest item actually is these diodes. Got a Xena diode and a normal diode. These would lay more flatter to the board than this, only slightly, but I want to give myself plenty of room for this because it's going to be a little bit awkward maybe to solder onto the board. I want to get it so it's dead center as well. All the pins line up. Hopefully you can see that's all the pins line up with the actual joints there, or the solder pad, shall we say, on the board. If I just put it away to give you some kind of idea, hopefully you can see that. We want to line each of them pins up, and it goes this way with this little dot here, with that little niches to the IC. So we're going to line it up and start soldering that. And I'll show you the soldering I'm using in a minute, but first of all we're going to line that up exactly, and I'll put a bit of tape because obviously that's not going to stay in position. So to keep that in position, I've got a little bit of tape. So if I can get this out, this tape, just bear with me. So we're going to do one side at once, and like I say, I'm going to get this tape and attach it to the IC first, try and get in the dead position so all the pins are lined up, and we've got the same kind of gap each side. I'm going to put that down so it's fairly tight so it don't wander about as I'm soldering it. Make sure it's on there, make sure I'm happy with the gaps in the pins as well. And it's tight this side, a little bit over there I think, just a fraction. It's pinging back just a little bit because I put the tape down there, so I'm just hoping to nick that a little bit just to keep in that position. That's not too bad there, that's okay. So we're kind of, hopefully you can see that, some angles and that, we're stuck like that down on there on the board. I'm not too sure what gauge this solder is, but it's quite thin as you can see there. So what I'm going to do is use this soldering iron. This isn't as expensive soldering iron, this is fairly cheap. I think this is about £8 or something like that. So we're not talking about mega money here. I'm just going to show you it. Here it is here. This is off of eBay, believe it or not, and got a little temperature control there. I think I've got it set on about 225, the little temperature control there. So we just want to make sure the nib of this iron is nice and shiny silver. So I've got one of these, just bring this over here because I'm not going to move the camera around, one of these kind of things that you can poke the iron in like so, and that shines the end up. Sometimes it does, most time it does. If not, we're going to go over to the soldering iron and give it a wipe, get everything off of it on the little sponge that comes with this soldering iron stand, and we're going to get that shiny as anything. So what I'm going to do now is try and get this lead out of the way. It may get in the way with the camera though, that's the only thing going behind there, but we're going to start soldering onto here. Now I'm going to do it so I can see and you can see hopefully. I'm going to go down this side from this endwards first, so I'm just going to offer it up. Should have maybe tinned the iron first, but I don't want to put too much on it. Just going to tin the iron a little bit there. It's basically putting solder on the iron, and it's not, the word is not, it's not adhering to the iron, should I say. I won't say sticking to the iron, but just want to put just a tad on there. It is working. Right, let's try again. Let's get it in there very, very tight. Trying to keep me. That's better. Now we've got the iron going, we should be all right. So that's pin 1 done. Pin 2. That's pin 3. Just going to try and turn these angles around so I can see. That's pin 4. That's pin 5. Just offering just a tiny bit of solder. We're not going around, we're just offering up the iron to the pin and the solder at the same time, kind of thing. Or maybe leaving the iron on there just a little bit longer. Just offering up just a little bit of solder. That's that pin there. A bit too much solder there. Doesn't matter if it's too much, but we don't want it going over to the other pin. I'll have to get a braid or something to get it off of that. Now, I'm not too sure if I'm happy with this pin here. I'm going to put it underneath. That's better. That particular pin, so you can see how we're going at the moment. Got a little bit too much solder on the last pin that I've soldered, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. So I'm going to wander on, just try and get the angle so this solder is coming a little bit more squarer to the pin and laying a bit flatter as well. It's kind of crept up in the air a bit there. This board will move on this mat, so something I'll talk about in a minute. Actually, the mat, yeah, you want it something that's going to hold it. Some people put it in a little jig This has got a reasonable amount of resistance, so it's not going to wander around. You don't want it on a shiny surface, so as you put the iron against the IC and solder, it kind of wanders off like that. You want a bit of grip. Some people clamp this down. I'm not going to do that. Hopefully that's going to be enough this here just to hold it in place. So we're going to wander on to the next pin. That's okay. Doing a better solder job there than I did one of the pins. One of the pins is not too... it's okay, but just a bit too much solder on it. It's just coming again when that's done. Got to be a bit careful because I'm getting a little bit of a blob on the end of my solder. There, can you see that? And that could come off in the iron, so we're going to cut that off. Just nip that off with my fingers. Get rid of that blob. So we've got more of a straighter piece of solder, because that blob's slightly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just going to fall out. As you can see, I don't know if you can see that, this pin here, it's got a bit too much solder. Not a lot, but just a little bit more than the others, but it's not touching, it's not shorting out anywhere, it's nothing to worry about. But we don't want to get any bigger. We'll get into a bad habit of not bothering to do it, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go along, and then all of a sudden we're going to short the pins out. But there you go, hopefully you can see that. There, I'll just hold that to the camera there, get that in a few positions of the light. That's one side. I'm not going to show you the other side. I'm going to go and do that now. And when we come back, that is going to be all done on the board. But hopefully you've got that there, one side of that IC soldered. Okay, that's on there now. Both sides soldered. And what I normally do is get the old magnifying glass, even though I nearly dropped it there. Get the old magnifying glass on there. You probably ain't going to see it through there though. But I'll just double check that all them pins are not shorting out anywhere, all nice and separated. So that's that. I'm going to put the diodes on there. There's two diodes. I'm just going to do them. I'm not going to go through the old board putting every single part. I'm going to skip some bits, but I'm just going to give you a gist of what I do next. I just want to show you another soldering iron I've got here. This is a lower wattage one than the one I just showed you. I can't remember what this is, but it's only in the hundreds, I think. No, not in the hundreds, sorry, in the tens. I think it's about a 10 watt iron or less than that. It's quite a low wattage iron compared to this. I just want to show you, this is the one I showed you earlier, nearest the camera now. And as you can see, the tip on this other one, the bigger one, is slightly smaller. So that's on this particular iron here. This particular iron here, you can see, hopefully, the tip is very, very fine compared to this one. If I just put the other tip against it, it's about twice as wide, this other tip here on this lower wattage iron. So even though I used a slightly higher wattage iron, it's got that just a little bit finer tip, just give me a bit more control when doing this circuit board. So I just wanted to show you that iron. So I just stick the iron back in there. So the next thing we're going to do, I think, is, like I say, is these diodes. Got two diodes, a Zener diode and a normal diode. And lucky enough, in this particular pack, let's just bring it back into camera. I forget where the camera is, sorry. Zener diode and a normal diode we're going to do next. These are two small parts. This Zener, lucky enough, they've kind of like let us know it's a Zener by putting that little bend in there. But I did check the number. If you put this under a big microscope, a big magnifying glass, you will see a number on that. And you will see a number on this one. This one's a little bit clearer to see, but still hard to see, if you know what I mean. So that's the normal diode, and this is the Zener. So we're going to put the Zener in, which is labelled up on our board down here, Zener diode 4.3, and we're going to put it in. So the black part is facing the straight line. We've got a triangle, hopefully you can see that, a triangle and a straight line on there. And the straight line is the black part of this diode. So we're going to put that on the board now. So I'll just poke it. By the way, this just, I didn't mention, this is a double-sided board, which means there's tracks on both sides. So you solder one side and it actually goes through to the solder, then actually goes. Well, sometimes it does. If you put enough solder on there, it will go through to the other side. But in this particular case, they're connected. One side's connected to the other through the holes. So it's a double-sided board. So on this particular side, we soldered on the top, but on the bottom, when we start poking things through, we're actually going to solder on the bottom side, this side here. So anyway, let's get this diode in here. This goes here. Poke that through. So that's one diode, and we're just going to bend them legs slightly so they don't fall out. Hopefully you can see this once it's gone through, but you'll suss that out yourself, because you turn it over and it'll just fall out. So when you're doing these boards, you will suss that out yourself. We've got another diode just here. Again, the black part of the diode, where the black line is, right at the tip there, we're going to put as where the black line is, or the line isn't the black line, but where the line is on the board. So we'll poke that through. we'll just solder these 2 diodes in. So I'm not going to go for every part because this would be a really long video. I'm just going to show you 1 or 2. I managed to bend that up doing it, but there you go. So that's in the board. Just give these wires a little bend, hold it in position, flick it over, and we're just going to solder them few bits there. Find me soldering iron, make sure that soldering iron, the tip of it's nice and clean. We're going to come in and do a little bit of soldering there. Can you see me on camera? Yeah, I'll do this. It doesn't matter where I start really. It's coming. It's still using the fine solder. I could go over to some bigger solder actually, which I may do. Just get that in there. That's it. And I'll go over this. It's using my fine solder up, which is ideal for that IC really. Maybe not so ideal for this. So if I come over, I'm just going to show you some thicker solder. This is got lead in it. Both of them got lead. These are not lead-free solders. This is a thicker solder. I would say when we compare solders, it's about probably 3 times thicker than the other solder I was just using. So this will be a bit quicker hopefully once I've got it going. See, there you go. And there you go. So that makes it a lot quicker, and obviously not wasting that thinner solder we can use for other jobs. So that's the 2 diodes in there, and we're just going to snip them off. Best to not have too many parts, just snip them off as you go really, just to get the old cut. Not too close to the board. When you come to snip these, don't go right down to the board, just leave a fraction of a gap, because you end up pulling that track off maybe or something, and hold it still and just give it a clip like so. Not quite on the board, just a tad off of it, just not too much, but just a fraction. You don't want it so you're crimping the solder you've just soldered. You don't want to crimp that solder, because you get in there and cut and end up chunking into the solder, cutting into the solder, and on some parts you may actually start putting these tracks off the board as well. So, and get yourself a sharp pair of these clippers, not a blunt pair, because that's when that starts going to happen as well, because you've got a tendency to clip and pull up at the same time sometimes, and you may pull that track up. So anyway, that's them 2 diodes in there, and I'm going to crack on now. I think I'll start putting some of these resistors in now. Okay, on this particular board, I'm going through the resistors next, and I looked at the board. They're all labelled up on this board, hopefully you can see. If I just bring that in, they're all labelled up, the resistors. Resistor R for resistor, and they're all labelled up the values of them. 2.2 there, for instance, maybe you can catch that. 100R there, 100 ohms, and 10k here going across there. So what I've done, I looked at the board, because when they give you these resistors, sometimes they give you an odd 1, then you may have an odd 2, then you may like have 5 together. And in this particular case, I think I haven't counted, but it looks like there's about 10 there, doesn't there? Something like that. So I look at the board and see where there's a lot of resistors. I'm looking for 10 here, so I must use this value 10 times somewhere. So I start looking at the board and I see that 10k is straight away 5 of them down there, 10k. If you can see that on the board, 5 of them 10k. I see there's a few more 10ks here, and a couple down here somewhere, I think, here and there. So that started to add up more than 5. So chances are that this is the 10k resistor here. Now you can go by the colour codes. You can start learning these, which I did do years ago. You can, learn which is what colour ring means what. But today I cheat. I'll take one out and I'll get my little transistor tester or multimeter or anything like that. But I've got this little tester here at the moment, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to stick it in there, and once I know which it is, I know all of the rest of them are. So make sure I get 2 pins. I'll turn it on and test it. So we're looking around about 10k here for this, and that says 10k exactly. So there's our 10k, so that we know the rest of these are all the same colour. These are all the 10k ones, so it's just going to save me time. And well, it don't save me time, I suppose you can work it out by the value of the bands. Like I say, go off and learn them maybe if you want to, but I just find it's quicker doing it here. But if you haven't got one of these meters, then you will have to learn the values of what each band is. I'm not going to tell you what they all are today now. I mean, that's something for you just to download. There's plenty of sites and plenty of places to go. We can download and print that out, and you can have it on the side and learn about all the values, which just come in handy if you can get some resistors you can't get to, for instance, and you want to know the value of it or something like that. Then you obviously have to look up the bands, or it may be on open circuit or something like that, so you can't measure it, or short circuit, and you can't measure it, and you need to know what it is you're replacing. You haven't got no circuit diagram or anything like that. So yeah, start reading the bands. Okay, let's get all these in. Just finishing off the last 5 resistors. There are 5 or 6 resistors, I think, or maybe a few more. That's one. There's more than 5 here, isn't there? Oops. Just get that straighten up a little bit. Just being a bit careful here, make sure them two are separate because they're not connected in the circuit. They're quite close. Oops, just caught the camera there with my lead, sorry about that. What is to get the right position. Get that in there. I think that's all of them done. So that's all the resistors, them K ones on the board. I'm going to snip them all off in a minute, but as you can see. Okay, I've put all the resistors in there now, as you can see. Hopefully you can see that on the board. Both sides soldered, the resistors. Okay, now one thing you will notice on this particular board, it uses a few inductors, and here's one that may catch you out. There's this one here down the bottom where my finger is. That is in fact an inductor, even though it's labelled up. It looks like it's labelled up as a resistor, but them bands there are actually telling you what it is for an inductor. And some maybe telltale signs is that it's a bit shorter than a normal resistor in length, the actual body of it, not including the leads. It's a bit fatter there, and also the pins are a bit thicker as well. So as you pick that up, you think this is a little bit thicker than the others, a little bit like fatter, like I say, squashed up a little bit. So it may catch you out, and this is where something like this does come in handy. You can put it in here. I'm sorry, I did do it, but I didn't film it. I thought I filmed it, but I didn't. But if you put it in here, it will give a reading of 150, which that is. So that there just may catch you out if you're doing this particular board. It's something that's probably not going to come up too often, I must admit, if you're doing some of these kind of kits. But it does come up with this board here. Now, the next problem we got now is all these capacitors. We've got lots of capacitors. Hopefully you can see them all laid out over here on this side. There's quite a few there. And now they're marked up on the board, but if we put them in a meter here, in this, it doesn't read any of them. They'll come up as faulty or open circuit or whatever. So this is no good to us reading these, and what we have to do here is on the board we have to look very carefully of all the markings. For instance, if we go up the top here, and hopefully you can catch that in the light, this top one here says C3 30p, C19 30p. These are capacitors here. Now we're going to have to look for them amongst these here. They're different from these other capacitors here, these bigger ones that says C4 470 microfarad. They're marked up in microfarad. These are marked up in picofarad, I'll take it. 30p, C3 30p. So to find these, best to lay them all out. We've got lots here. Don't usually get this many, just get a few, but you will see some numbers printed on them. You may need a magnifying glass, but these are reasonably clear to me with my glasses on, but this has got 104, so that's not the one. So we're going to flick through there until we find one labelled up 30p or 30 on it, 30 or 30p. That's the one that'll fit in there. Now if you come across any you can't find that are not labelled up, or the labelling ain't great on here, then they haven't printed it out very well. It's very, this one's got it on there on this side, but it's very, very fine. You can't really read it. That best to put all the ones in you know, get all them in, and hopefully you're going to be left over with just one or two. And you can kind of work it out by a matter of deduction. The ones, maybe the one or two you're left over with, may be able to find out which ones go where. So yeah, a little bit awkward, them capacitors can kind of trip you up or just put you on edge putting them in, but they are labelled up on the board. Like I say, it's just a matter of matching them all up as you go round. Like for instance, another one down there, capacitor 33, I don't think it's called 103p. So hopefully one of these has got 103 written on it, and we're going to find it. If we don't, like I say, matter of deduction, after you put all the others in, you may find that particular capacitor. So I'm not going to show you me soldering them. Hopefully I'm going to plonk all them. I'm going to find them amongst all them capacitors there. Okay, all the capacitors are in there now. Hopefully you can see that. I've got them all in there. Exactly right, no missing. Now and again you get an odd part over, but in this case none were missing. And okay, I've skipped a few components here. As you can see, I put the inductors in here, and they're the same sizes on the board. One's slightly bigger than the other, you can see it on the board, and one's slightly smaller. You can see that indication on the board, so there's no worries getting them. We've got the switches here, one here and one there. They're easy enough. We've got our headphone socket here, which was straightforward, Our microphone here was straightforward. Our crystal we put in there, which was straightforward, and our dip switches, everything was straightforward there and all soldered in there, as you can see. Now, we've not got many parts left now. We've done the hardest part, I think, was these little capacitors. Oops, sorry, get it in view. The hardest part was little capacitors, finding the values and, you know, zooming in on them kind of thing, getting your magnifying glass or your glasses out to find out what they are. We've just got an handful of components here, as you can see. We've got some capacitors here, which are quite big, easy going to find out where they are on the board. They're all labelled up, and they're actually labelled up on the capacitors, so that's no problem. Transistors are labelled up on the board as well, as you can see down here. Hopefully catch that in the light, the numbers. They're labelled up, the numbers on there, what transistor, the numbers, and an indication there of which way round they go. As you can see there, the kind of indication of which way round they're going to go. So we're going to put them in with the flat side. You'll see the transistor, it's got a flat side. That flat side will go along the flat side on the board, and that's more rounded side there. And they're labelled up, they're numbered there, 9018, and when you look close at these transistors, you're probably not going to catch it there, but there is a number on there. So you're not going to have any problems there. Just got the diodes to go in as well, and a little connection here to go in. So there's not much more to go, and then we're going to give it a little test. So I've got an aerial as well. Yeah, I forgot about this little bit of wire. That's the aerial that's going to go in, antenna there. So yeah, we're going to get them few bits in and come back and see the finished article, hopefully, and give it a little test. Okay, so the FM transmitter is all done now. I've got all the parts on there. I did solder an aerial on there to test it out. I've took the aerial off for the minute just to make sure there's no wires dangling to get you confused or anything. But that is the board complete. Hopefully you can see that. This little FM transmitter. Now we'll do another video later on telling you, this is just mainly just to show you the soldering I've done on that board and how this would come in handy, what you use it for, etc. We'll do another video on that. Now I tested it out, and of course it don't work. Now, yes, it doesn't work. Unbelievable, Mick. You've gone through all that, telling us how to solder, and you put something together and it don't work. That's fantastic. You haven't got anything else that don't work that we can put together, have you? Well, in fact, I haven't, no. Yeah, it's one of those things, it does happen now and again. Pretty rare, I must admit. I've done quite a lot of kits. And it very rarely happens, but it will happen now and again. So, you know, I weren't going to put the video out. I thought I could pretty much hide this and not even bother putting this video out. But, you know, why not put it out there to let you know that sometimes you can put these kits together. It's happened to me in the past and it doesn't work. Now, then you're looking at fault finding to find out what's gone wrong. Have you put one of these parts in the wrong way round? Is one of these parts not working correctly? All that kind of stuff. So it can be very, very frustrating to the stage you think, I'm just going to sling this in the bin. Now that can happen. So I think it's great for me to show you this video just to let you know that sometimes it does happen, rarely, that these kits don't work. Now, like I say, you could, you know, maybe put one of these diodes in the wrong way round. You've got the wrong value resistor in the wrong place. You've got the wrong value capacitor in the wrong place. You've got a transistor the wrong way round. And even so, now and again, that these are cheap China units, obviously, and now and again maybe one of these parts don't actually work. So yeah, now if you haven't got a meter, you're going to struggle to find out which is what. You may be able to see you've put in something the wrong way round, but you may need to get a meter to test, you know, all the transistors work, and has one of them gone open circuit, short circuit, that kind of thing, etc. Test the capacitors, all that kind of stuff. Now I've got a few problems here. I've gone round the board. I've gone round the board with my meter, make sure I haven't got any shorts anywhere. All the capacitors are okay, they're not shorted, I've got the right capacitor in the right place, all that kind of stuff, transistors checked and all that. And it all seems fine. Now the only thing I can't test is this IC. This is the only thing I can't. I've tested to make sure there's no shorts between the pins, and there isn't. Tested a few voltages here and there, but I can't really test any more because really you need a oscilloscope to go further with this to see what else is happening, and that's something I haven't got, and I haven't got the expertise in that. So with something like this, a circuit like this, is probably something you may not do straight away anyway. And if you're in that position, it may be one of them circuits that's probably going to end up in the bin. Now, like I say, it very rarely happens, but it can happen. And I just wanted to bring it to you because you could be doing all this and it not work. Now, it could be pretty much the same if you're mending an amplifier, etc. You could quite easily make a mistake and put the transistor in the wrong way round after taking one out. It does happen. No one's foolproof, and if you go to any videos of people mending stuff, you will find out they mention that they've done things wrong in the past. It's going to happen, and with experience you learn, etc. So it's a great way of learning, really. Can be a very frustrating way of learning, but it is a way of learning. Now, lucky enough, I've been offered my friend, a mate of mine, who knows a lot more about electronics than me and has got tons and tons, spectrum analyzers, all that kind of stuff, plenty of equipment. He's going to have a little look at it. He's not going to spend too much time on it, so if he can't see it pretty much straight away after doing a little bit of testing, I don't think he's going to go much further. But he's offered to do a little look just in case. Sometimes you go blind. You know, you've done something, you can't see it yourself, and it needs a fresh pair of eyes, another pair of eyes. He may come straight away and say, Mick, this is in the wrong place, or something like that. I don't know. Or it could well be that this chip isn't working. Or something like that. It could be anything. So I really am guessing here. So at the moment, I've showed you how to do some soldering and that, and I think it's, you know, it's not come out well in this particular case for me anyway. And you think, oh, I've just wasted my time, Mick. I've gone through that video and you show me how to do stuff that don't work. But you know, in a way, I just want to show you some pitfalls. Sometimes things don't work. So you know, as far as I'm concerned, I've done everything right here. But it just hasn't worked, and that can happen. But in previous ones I've done recently, well, I say recently, over the last 6 months or so, little kits I've bought here and there just to muck about with, everything has worked. So it's just, and if it didn't, I probably could test it to see what's happened. But this is an FM transmitter, and it's something that I can't test fully. I've done a little bit of testing, but can't quite get it working. Anyway, hopefully, fingers crossed, he may be able to get this going. But I will do another video because it's kind of got me interested in this FM, and I've bought another couple of things that are on their way to me that I think, you know, is worth a video. FM transmitter, how's that going to come in use to me on the old hi-fi vintage channel? How you can link up some stuff and get some results, how do they sound, all that kind of stuff. I think I'll come up with a future video, which won't be too long away, I don't think, probably the next week or so. Give you some insight into that, but hopefully you've took something out of this video, and maybe one thing you've took out of it is Mick don't know what he's doing. He's crap at putting these circuits together, but it's just one of them things. It does happen now and again. Okay, thanks for watching and sitting through that. I see you all in the next video.